Hi everyone, David Aragona and Mike Beer here taking a look at one of the Grade 1 races on the Travers undercard this Saturday at Saratoga. Race 9 is the Grade 1 Personal Ensign, this one going the mile and an eighth distance for the fillies and mares on the main track. And Mike, fair to say, probably not a vintage edition of the Personal Ensign. I think the absence of Nitrogen, who went to the Whitney instead and actually fared pretty well against the males, is kind of felt in this field because she obviously beat a couple of these horses in the Ogden Phipps going back to earlier this year. But Fully Subscribed and Scottish Lassie, who battled it out in the Shuvi last time. It's going to be an interesting rematch of those two at the very least.
Probably would have been maybe fun to see Nitrogen on this Travers Day card anyway, just go over and see her. But, she certainly would have made it an unbettable race, you would think, the way she handled these horses the last time she met them. But, listen, it still didn't get that big a field. I'm not sure how interesting it is from a wagering perspective, but we certainly have stuff to talk about.
Let's dive into the contenders with the number 1, Margie's Intention, a rare big price that you're going to get on the Brad Cox barn. And Micah, you take a look at her form. Obviously, she's a little slow compared to the top contenders in this race. That's fairly obvious. Her top buyer is an 85, but you start to watch them for replays. She's okay. I mean, she's in the mix. She's finishing well in all of her races. It feels like the mile and an eighth is no problem for her. Yep. I guess one minor concern, aside from the class and the speed figures that others have an edge over her on, Mike, is just the fact that she doesn't have a whole lot of early speed. She's not slow early, but you do wonder if she's going to have the finishing kick to match a horse like Fully Subscribed, who we know can really motor home.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the trip will be really important for her here. And yeah, she still has to prove that she can, go with horses even like this. I did think there were things to like about her, though. As you pointed out, the distance is no problem. She actually is pretty good. I mean, she held her own in some decent races as a 3-year-old. Her first start this year, she did match her by her top from last year. So that was a good sign for her. And then I just thought that, I know it was a weaker field last time and it wasn't a super fast race. I thought she looked good winning that race last time. And so I did take the position that she's better at 4 than she was at 3. And now we'll see if she can take the step forward that she needs to take against these horses.
Up next is the morning line favorite, the number 2, Fully Subscribed. Like I said, coming off that victory in the Shuvi last time where she faced off against today's rival Scottish Lassie. We'll take a look at the replay of this race as Fully Subscribed still has some work to do at the top of the stretch. It looks like Scottish Lassie has made this breakaway move. Scottish Lassie, the number 4 on this day in that purple cap, the first one highlighted there, Fully Subscribed. She's in the yellow, red and white, trying to make up ground behind her. And, at this point in the race, Mike, it kind of looks like Scottish Lassie's got it won, but you could see steadily Fully Subscribed starting to pick up her stride. She finds that target ahead of her, is going to try to get her by the time they get to the wire, and she just gets up in time. Gives you some confidence that the mile and an eighth is really perfect for this horse, whereas maybe it's a little bit of a question distance for her main rival, Scottish Lassie. Fully Subscribed, like we said, she was no match for Nitrogen 2 back. None of these would be. But other than that, she's just been in great form. She's shown steady improvement, and she feels like the one to beat.
Yeah, she's the horse to beat. There's no doubt. That was a good win last time for her. Yeah, and as far as the distance goes, I mean, she proved that she wants, this distance and maybe even more than this as a 3-year-old at the end of last year. They got her stretched out in distance. She missed a lot of time. It felt to me like it took her a couple races at the end of last year to really get into racing shape. But her 2 graded stakes wins going this distance at the end of last year were really good, and she's come back and she's even better this year. I guess the only question I have for you, as far as that replay we just watched there, David. Really good win for Fully Subscribed or really bad loss for Scottish Lassie?
I'm going to say it's a little bit of both, because I think Scottish Lassie was tying up a little bit at the end. We'll talk about that more when we get to her. But Fully Subscribed, you can kind of see her targeting that horse ahead of her and going after her. She's shown that grit in her races before, and she seems to be training well, to my eye, maybe better than ever coming into this race. So I'm expecting another big performance from the favorite. The number 3 is Nerazurri. Mark Cassidy obviously not running Nitrogen in this race, but he still has a decent contender in this filly. Mike, she wasn't grade 1 quality earlier this year when she tried the Apple Blossom and the La Trienne. I would say that at least in one of those races, she did not get a very good trip, so I can be a little forgiving of it. Since then, she's run pretty well. I know she wasn't beating the strongest field in that stakes event at Thistledown, but I liked the way that she did it. That felt like a real step forward for her. And last time at Monmouth, it wasn't a wet track, but they had sealed it, and she just was kind of far back in the early stage. She got squeezed back at the start. To me, she was just never in the right position that day, because you start to pick apart her form, and I think she runs her best races when she can get involved early. And the fact that she was always out of position last time. I think it kind of negatively affected her. She actually was finishing decently at the end of the race, sort of after it was over. So I feel like she's the one horse I can get to that's an intriguing alternative to the two favorites.
Yeah, I'm with you on the running style piece of that too, because I think you're right. She's capable of getting involved at the start, and that's going to help her in this race. Obviously, she is going to have to prove that she can, really run her A race against really top competition. And, I do think that there are some good horses in here. So I do think she's going to have to show up and run it. And I was this is a horse this is what I want to say about her. She's improved for Cassie. I really like her wins. And I just kind of wished when they have run her in the tougher races that she just run a little bit better than that.
I would agree with that, but I do think she probably has a better trip coming to her than she did last time. So I think at the price, if she is 6-1, she's maybe an intriguing alternative. The number 4 is Scottish Lassie, and she was the one that we showed getting run down by Fully Subscribed in that replay of the Shuvie. And yeah, Mike, I would say that probably was a bad loss for her because she was the one that bettors made the favorite that day. She really had things go her way. She got the trip that she wanted, stalking another horse, moderate fractions. She took over in hand, but when she got set down in the stretch, there was just no response there. And that's something I've noticed watching a lot of her races, Mike, that she's one of these horses that doesn't seem to really respond to urging. She doesn't respond to the crop. If anything, she responds negatively to it. And when she's able to kind of travel in hand and do things under her own power, and kind of, be the boss against maybe the big fish in the small pond, then she really is able to show her best form. But when they really have to set her down and she's got to fight for it, I feel like sometimes there's a little bit of faint-heartedness with this horse.
I'm 100% with you on this. And you can kind of see that. Like, it might not be glaring when you first go through her PPs, but you can see it. When you look at her just on paper, she's won 3 times. She won the Frizette by 9 lengths. She won the CCA Oaks by over 15 lengths. And then she won the allowance race 2 back by over 8 lengths. Like, when she gets out in front and she gets brave, she just doesn't stop running. But if you make her, have to race for it, then it's sort of a different story. She's a really good horse. She's a dangerous horse in here, because if she gets out in front of these horses early, she just might forget to stop. But I just don't know that I'd be willing to take a short price on her based on the Shuvie that we just watched there, where Fully Subscribed just came in and sort of ran her over at the end.
I guess a wild card in this race is the number 5 Speed Shopper, who hasn't been on the dirt in a very long time, and she's coming in off pretty decent turf form for trainer Will Walden. Obviously finished off the board in a couple of graded stakes events recently, but she was facing some pretty tough company in those spots, trying the Grade 1 New York and then running into Survey. You proved yourself to be Grade 1 quality next time out in the Christophe Clement. Mike, you go back to some of her prior races. Distance is no problem. I mean, she can get 1.5 miles on the turf, so 1.1 miles on the dirt is not going to be an issue for her in terms of stamina. It just really is whether or not she can transition back to this surface, because it's not like she was some, wonder horse when she first got on the turf early in her career, but I still, going back to watch some of those dirt races, I'm not sure she really wants the dirt.
I'm not either, and it's unfortunate, because she was the kind of horse I would like to. I tried to make a case for in here, just because I do like her recent tour form, and the other part of this is it does seem like if she's going to run in a Breeders' Cup race, it's going to have to be somewhere else. It's not going to be the Philly Mare Turf, because they tried to find out if she was that kind of horse 2 starts back when they went shorter with her on the grass, and it just didn't really work out. She's probably not of that quality anyway. They're going to try here, I think, just to see if she runs well here. Maybe they could run her in the distaff if they want a Breeders' Cup race for her, but I'm not that optimistic.
Watching some of her workouts, she trains well in the dirt in the sense that she seems to handle it, but she's got a very turfy action with that high striding knees, and just feels like a horse that maybe they're making an experiment here. We'll see if it works out. The number 6 is Snow White, and she was actually the pace setter in that Shuvie before getting run down by both Scottish Lassie and then later Fully Subscribed. You wonder, Mike, I think the big question with Snow White is how they're going to ride her in here, because obviously she got to the lead over Scottish Lassie in that Shuvie. But there's a rider switch this time, the Junior Alvarado, who's not known as quite an aggressive rider as Luis Saez is. So you wonder if they're going to be on some dead scent from the outside post, or look to maybe sit too wide outside of Scottish Lassie. And if that's what they do, as this pace projector suggests, maybe that gives a slight advantage to Scottish Lassie.
I agree. Yeah. And you also wonder, too, since they did, make the lead last time, and it didn't really seem to matter. She was just no match for the 1-2 finishers in that race, that maybe they'll just try to change it up a little bit here and do something a little different and see if it leads to a better result. She's fine. I've never really been a big fan of hers, and I just feel like she's up against it once again in this race.
Let's go to our picks for this Grade 1 Personal Ensign Race 9 on this Travers Day card. And, Mike, I agree with you on your top pick, the number 2, Fully Subscribed. I didn't put her on top myself, but I do much prefer her to the other favorite.
No, I do too. The longer I looked at it, the less, I felt like I could get really clever. And here, listen, I think Fully Subscribed actually is really good. And I think she probably is the second best horse in this division. So I'm just going to take her on top here. But I'm glad that you went a different way because you've made an interesting case for the 3.
Yeah, I would say Fully Subscribed is very much the most likely winner of this race, but I just think Nerazurri is going to be a fair price in here. She's a little less than exposed at this level, and maybe she's just not good enough, but I do think if she gets a more aggressive ride from Luis Saez and she's involved from the start, maybe that's going to allow her to run one of her better races, which aren't that far off the 2 favorites. 3, 2, 4, 1 for me, and 2, 4, 1, 3 for Mike in the Grade 1 Personal Ensign on this Travers Day card Saturday at Saratoga. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.